Hello everybody, welcome back to the 1.0 Exploration series. As per your voting, we are now going to be doing the Consecrated Snowfield and everything that leads to. And we'll be saving Fire Missoula for the penultimate part, and then Asher Capital at the very end. We don't got much to go, we're closing in on the end of the series, so I hope you join me for this video and the ones coming up. But yeah, let's get into the snowfields. Out of curiosity, I decided to check the medallions you needed to get to the Haligtree and see the descriptions and stuff, and they're actually a little bit weird. The right one is kind of accurate, I suppose. The way they describe the Albanark village is interesting. But the left one, you don't get given the medallion by Gideon. At best, he hints towards it. So I wonder if this is a change in how he got the medallion, or just an error. In the hidden path to the Haligtree, the Hero's Rune one that's after you drop down from the visible pathway is simply a button cave moss. Under this floor here, the rot resin is a blood rose. There's no Spelldrake Talisman +2 at this window. Going to the boss, the Stray Mimic tier is just called Mimic tier, which I suppose fits as well. Stray just implies that it is far from where it's supposed to be. It's playing the Grave Warden song instead of the Amir, like the previous Mimic tier we fought already as a boss. And for the drop, it's called the Black Flame Monk Amon's Ashes, instead of just the name, Black Flame Monk Amon. Since this finally gave us the last death route, we're going to check all the last rewards we haven't covered yet. Most of them are the same, but the Beast Claw Great Hammer is called Lion's Claw Great Hammer. In 1.0, Gronk's last dialogue is the same, but he's lacking the roar effect and just fades away. While in release, he gets dusted away. Now going into the Consecrated Snowfields proper, first thing I noticed is that it's actually playing the Mountaintops OST, I believe, instead of the Consecrated Snowfields. At night, the visibility isn't too bad in 1.0, and I kind of wish this was more what it is in release, because it's definitely really hard to explore this area overall. The daytime visibility is just as bad though as release, as far as I could tell. This part of the map also has arrows in the map, which I was told in the last video that these are actually topographical symbols to show elevation differences. But actually, if you look closely, I noticed that these post-release maps still have them, they're just kind of faded out. And the same goes for the Mountaintops one. There's no Putrid Duelist in this coffin segment of the snowy area, so you don't get the drops that you normally get in Current Patch, because he's just not there. There's a random open chest here, which isn't here in Current Patch. This is pretty much next to the Albanark Rise, and it's normally supposed to be that little pillar that shows you can summon Spirit Ashes. Speaking of which, last time for the series, the Albanark Rise is called Albanark Glintstone Rise, and it seemed the same, the puzzle and the reward are the same. It's possible maybe I had a bug or I missed it somehow, but I never got any flask recharges in this area, when I should have killed plenty of enemies to get a drop or two here and there, but I didn't get it ever. And I didn't post-release. Maybe this area is not considered an open world area, even though it should. I don't see why not. If you have had it drop last for you, do let me know. At the Consecrated Snowfield Catacombs, these rot resins are mushrooms in 1.0. There's no human bone shard pickup in this room. And next to it, the item that's supposed to be the Unpatched Elder is just poison stones. As we discussed in the past, they usually drop these days, so could just be an enemy drop. One of the pillar snow thingies goes to the stairway here, which actually turned out to be very dangerous and something to keep an eye out if you're exploring this area. The Grave Duelist boss didn't remove his cloak until I got really close to him, so I guess his aggro thing is a little bit shorter in the boss room. The boss seemed the same. He did drop the glove ward, but he didn't drop the rotten Gravekeeper cloak, unfortunately. So as you can probably tell, we're getting a pattern here. Back outside, for the dual Night Cavalry boss fight, as opposed to the last one we fought, the Mountaintops, these one do have proper boss health scaling, but they're still not boss health bars at the bottom. They are a nighttime boss, and as we've seen, those appear to not be counted as bosses per se. Instead of having to kill both of them so they'll drop everything that they have, the first one that you kill, the Flail one, drop the set only, and when you kill the second one, he drops the Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. So it works a little bit differently. You can actually just get whichever you need. Near where you find the Stalwart Horn Charm +1, there's no Ancestral Followers or Shaman, and what is supposed to be the Stalwart Charm is just Glintstone Flies in 1.0. So once again, another Talisman and another Horn Charm missing. The Stake of America at Yelough Ruins is broken, don't use it. I was warned about this, but I literally forgot until the moment I was flying through the sky, as I reloaded through there. The Unendurable Frenzy incantation is called Frenzied's Firestorm. The Sanguine Noble Invader drank one more flask than usual, otherwise the fight seemed the same. He still dropped the same things, but he also dropped a Cerulean Crystal tier, which in this character already had both, so I couldn't pick it up at all. It was just maxed out in my inventory. So I had to double check in another character, and yeah, sure enough, it drops one of them. Funny enough, it's a pickup too, it's not like it's dropped into your inventory. And it does seem to be the left side, so do with what for what you will. Oh, and speaking of which, I did use one of the very old Snowfield skips from the Mountaintops to get this character there. So if you want to know, yes, those still work, which makes sense. At this tree here, the Smithing Stone 8 is replaced by a Rot Resin 1.0. At the Apostate Derelict, instead of the Silver Mirror Shield in front of Latina's sister, we find the Peldrake Talisman +2 here, which is supposed to be at the Haligtree, so we'll have to see what's there instead. When bringing Latina to her sister, she spawns a lot further from her and starts talking immediately in 1.0. When in release, she spawns next to her, and she also gestures towards her sister at the end of the first set of dialogue, with no particle effect, when she's supposed to do it during in release. And in 1.0, she simply leaves the +10 Somber Stone where she was. When in release, she gives it to you mid-dialogue. For whatever reason, the regular +25 stone is separated from the rest. But now that we have all of them, here are what all the stone names are. We talked about this in the very beginning of the series, so there's tons of differences, but I decided to wait until the very end to show them all at once. At the moment, I don't think we're done with the runes, but I'll have to hold on to that thought, because I have some suspicions that I'll discuss in the later part of the video. Behind the Derelict, the Somber Smithing Stone 9 here is an Ascent Butterfly in 1.0. Going into the Yelough Anix tunnel, the only difference I can find in the tunnel itself is that there's no Heroes Rune 5 in front of this Onyx Lord. But for the Astel fight, it has a lot of the same differences as the other Astel, like the meteorite opening and the color of the meteorites themselves. The song is Graveborn this time instead of the Astel song. But I noticed that the particle effects are different from the other Astel 1.0 as well. And I don't believe they're different due to the environment either. They do seem to have just straight up different kind of coloring particle effects. And he also has a whole new strategy. As you may know, this Astel has an additional attack that the other one doesn't in Unpatched, where he can summon a bunch of grayed out Astels to grab you at the same time when he teleports. And he still can't do that in this one, but in 1.0, those great clones can actually appear at random and attack you, which is very jarring, and it does seem kind of unfair, but it was surprisingly easy to dodge and avoid them just by kind of panic rolling. It was kind of interesting. If they're trying to make it a spooky fight, it's good. If they weren't, it's not. It's just not good. Back outside in the Frozen River segment, once again we have a Nighttime Deathrite Bird, which is not considered a boss. It fights exactly the same as the last Deathrite Bird we fought. And I do want to quickly address the wings. Yes, the color of the wings are different, but I had discussed that in the Caelid video, since that's one of the first ones you can encounter. But given the nature of this series, I'm not surprised that not everyone has seen that part yet. When it died, the explosive ghost flame is called Flames of Death. For some reason, Anastasia is already spawned in visually before you get invaded, but she then invades in properly in the same spot. I assume this is kind of like when they have a second face model of a boss underneath the map. Maybe they do that for NPC invaders as well, but she was just mistakenly spawned overground. She did not drop the Somber Smithing Stone though, so that was disappointing. She kind of doesn't have any reason to invade. For the Great Worm Theodorix, there's literally no difference that I could tell, but there's no Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone behind him in the Ice Cliffs. Theodorix actually reminded me, and I believe this is the last one we should encounter that drops anything, about the Dragon Incantations, so we're going to quickly look at them. Magma Breath is called Magma Worm's Belch in 1.0. Theodorix's Magma has an added apostrophe S in current patch, or just had the apostrophe at the end in 1.0. I'm not entirely sure that's supposed to be grammatically correct, but I can't say that for the next one, which is Ixix's Decay, which also had the apostrophe S added to the end of the word, which a lot of people have pointed out for Ordorvis's sword, that having additional apostrophe S is not correct, only the apostrophe is correct. Which I believe personally I didn't know was the case, but I don't want to state anything, that's not my field. And lastly, Smarag's attack has the same color as the boss fight, which is different from the release version, and they actually match the colors for each version respectively. It's kind of interesting. In the Cave of the Forlorn, the only difference I could find here is that there's no Hero Rune 2, which I started noticing that the Hero Runes are not in 1.0, so I'm starting to think that maybe these particular runes were added later in development to give you a bigger rune. I still want to keep looking through the maps to see if that's the case, but that's what I meant earlier, in that we might actually be done with the runes, but we'll see. The Misbegotten Crusader is called Aberrant Crusader, as you might expect. It is also playing for a mid of a foe 1 instead of Old Warriors. I noticed that the particle effect on the established Order Ash of War is brighter in 1.0, where it's supposed to be more gold hued in post-release. Besides that though, there was no differences. It still drops the sword of course, and I will check the hue of this sword at the end of the series, when I can reallocate stats without worrying about lava tier count and my build in general. For the final northeast section of the Snowfield, the White Shadows lore Ash of War is called Illusory Lore in 1.0. While I was getting this, I was also attacked by an invisible wolf. I assume that's just a bug. I don't know. At the top left of here, where you find the Grave Warden Duelist, it's not here again. So as you can probably guess, just the entire Rotten Grave Duelist set is not in this version. So it makes sense that these enemies were added later on, when they maybe gave the cloak to the boss, and then they added 2 more to fight. I noticed that the Albanarch woman would scream and stuff when they got hurt. which I didn't notice in the release version. I did notice that they do share a scream when they die, at least, for both versions. It's good voice acting, but it was a little horrifying, so I guess I'm not surprised they removed it. Speaking of the Albinauric woman, when they're riding the wolves, the frost spell that they do is actually a lot cooler because it has a spell sigil that pops up. But I don't believe it's one that's normally used in the game. I could be wrong about that. If I am and someone wants a better screenshot of this sigil, let me know and I'll try to get one. But I did find it really interesting. I got a random Shamshir drop from an Albinauric frog enemy, which then that made me think that you have to farm it instead of having the said pickup. And yeah, sure enough, I went to the High Road Cave, make sure, and it is not there. There's no scarabs with a Somber 8 and Somber 9 in these rock outcrops here. And I did go and fight the Avatar, but there's nothing to report. Everything seemed the exact same. Now going into Ordina. The Ordina Liturgical Town Grace is called Ordina City of Ceremony in 1.0. There's a random Crimson Scarab that's not normally here in release, kind of to the top right of where the jail is. There's no Black Knife set in its normal spot, because apparently you have to actually farm it from the enemies. Or at least that's what it seems to be the case. In release, these Black Knife in the actual jail only drop glove warts, which are missable if you finish the place and don't kill them or whatever, and they don't respawn. So they're technically missable if you don't kill them or whatever, but you know, it's just glove warts. You can get more of those. But in 1.0, I did get one to drop the pants at least. So there's two possibilities here. You have to drop their set through these enemies, and it's a random chance drop, or they only drop the leggings entirely, which I find hard to believe. Now, normally I'll be fine, but just like in post-release, they do despawn after you kill them once, and you can just finish this area. But if you finish this area, you can't go back there. So both these factors make it a bit yikes. Some of the Albinauric women here have purple bows and arrows instead of blue. But not all of them, some just have the regular bows in general. And lastly, the most important change of the entire snowfield. There's no cured meat in the stairway. That's it. Alright, and that is all for the video. Next time is Mogwen Dynasty. I feel like that's a more natural progression to go from there and then to the Haligtree. And difficulty-wise, I'm sure you could agree. Although it's a small area, so it might not be the longest part, but you know. That's how I roll sometimes. Then after that, I'm still unsure if I have to divide Haligtree into two parts. I haven't done that in the series at all, so I don't think I will. But just know that could be a possibility if it's just too much to talk about. And then from there, it's Farum and then freaking Ashen Capital. So that should mean there's 4 parts left of the series. But yeah, thank you for everyone who's been watching so far. And you know, it's been a wild journey and I am definitely a little bit sad it's coming to an end, you know, gotta. But at the same time, it's still a lot of work that I would be okay having finished as well. I do have the complete video planned after that, after some indeterminate amount of time. But at least I can kind of work that on my own pace, since I know it's a big release. And I can put out in between videos. But yeah, regardless, if this is your first part of the series, there's a ton of things you can watch in the playlist. I also put out some shorts in between this part and the last one, discussing something that I was been aware of, but I thought I was way past that part of the game, so I just wanted to cover as a short, just to try it out. They'll also be in the playlist. It discusses a armor set that was actually cut from release, that was in 1.0. You may have heard about it. Yeah, regardless, even if you just watched this video, thank you for doing so. I do hope to see you around again, however, especially as we near the end and start getting the whole series concluded. But yeah, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again. Bye bye.